Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, family. Welcome to the Mental House. I am your host, Khadijah. A lot of people have been asking me about Seville Smith, and which was a shooting of the young man that happened here in Milwaukee back here in August, and have the police released the videotape yet? And my answer to that is no. Milwaukee is still on the cusp of some real. It's like a powder keg. The mayor announced, I think about a week ago, that there was a $5 million initiative that he was going to use for the inner city of Milwaukee to, um, I guess, to go directly to some of these organizations, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Also, in there, we found out that uh, Governor Walker has allocated. They had money allocated from the federal government, I think, for a while. But to make the long story short, Scott Walker and his cronies stole the money or redirected it someplace else. Scott Walker is really a demonic guy in more ways than one. And the Koch brothers really have a good. They got a good zookeeper in him. But anyway, I want to go back to Seville Smith, and I'm going to read an article that was taken from the Milwaukee Journal, Raquel Rutledge, uh, and witness to police shooting that led to Milwaukee riots recounts moment before the man's death. Now, this was done by Demario Pritchard, okay, and he's the guy that was in the car with Seville Smith, and I thought I'm gonna read this article to you guys real quick. Demario Pritchard sits on the other side of a plexiglass window and grabs a red receiver. It's his first face-to-face connection with the outside world since the Saturday in mid-August when his friend was shot dead by Milwaukee police. He's in jail in Greenbay, 116 miles away from North 44th Street in Milwaukee, where he was sitting in the car next to Seville Smith when the police cars came up screeching. He is the only known witness who can speak to what Smith was doing shortly before the fatal shooting that sparked several nights of riots in the Sherman Park neighborhood and ramped up long, festering racial friction across Milwaukee. The state Justice Department has yet to release records from its investigation into the death, and the public has yet had a chance to view video footage from the body cams worn by police. As a result, Pritchard's account remains largely uncorroborated. Milwaukee police and other law enforcement officials declined to comment on what happened prior to the shooting, nothing noting that the investigation has not been completed. Now, noting this, that they're saying that remember his story cannot be corroborated, but remember it's been over a month and they won't release the videotapes, and that's because we already know what time it is. There's something on that video very incriminating, otherwise it would have been released, and I don't want to hear that it's for the investigation because they release video all the time. They release video of us. They release video when they show you the camera and they go, oh, there's somebody sneaking in the store. Oh, there's somebody that. So what is the problem? That it's bull crap is what it is, and it's a bunch of legal jargon that to make you think that the many big words that they can use, the more relevant it should be. But when you should understand, the more bigger words they use, it should be the more bull crap that they're about to throw in your face. Okay. The way Pritchard tells it, he and Smith weren't looking for trouble at all. The two old friends had spent the afternoon together hanging out for the first time in several years, Pritchard said. They had grown up playing basketball with each other at the Boys and Girls Club, but had drifted apart when Pritchard moved to Green Bay to be close to his brother. When they saw each other at a mutual friend's funeral in July, they made plans to get together. So there they were, parked in front of Pritchard's girlfriend's parents' house, 2 blocks from Sherman Park. It was close to 3:30 p.m. August 13th. Pritchard said he was just saying goodbye and getting out of the car. He was meeting his girlfriend and they were heading to the Wisconsin Dells. They had no reason to think police were following them or looking for them, Pritchard said. They weren't causing problems, he said. Sure, they had stopped by a friend's house for a little weed, but they weren't in a stolen car. They hadn't robbed anybody, hadn't seen anything going on around them, he said. Heck, they even been wearing their seatbelts. That's how much they were trying to steer clear of conflict with the police, he said. The 23-year-old Smith had had a number of encounters with police, having been arrested 9 times, but ending up being convicted of nothing but misdemeanors. Pritchard had 2 convictions for possessing cocaine, the second one a felony, and he was on probation as a result. Smith had a gun, Pritchard confirmed. He said that speaks to just life in Milwaukee, generally more than an intent to do wrong. Someone can pull up on you at any time, Pritchard said. You've got to be able to protect yourself. As a felon, Pritchard is not allowed to possess a gun. As for Smith, his family maintains that he had a concealed and carry permit and wasn't breaking any laws in having the weapon with him. Guns aside, Pritchard said that he and his friends typically go out of their way to make sure police have no reason to mess with them. Milwaukee police have a reputation among young men in the District 7, which is where that gang called the Punishers. They got a police gang called the Punishers, and I mean, they brutal. They're the ones who are behind Frank Jude beating, and a lot of those guys were in that gang, the Punishers. And in fact, if you don't know who Frank Jude was, he was a person that wasn't supposed to survive the beating of the police department, and the only thing is he did. And his face looked just like Emmett Till. And anyway, except he was alive. He goes, as a felon, Pritchard isn't allowed to possess a gun. As for Smith, again, his family said he had his weapon with him and he has a permit to carry. Pritchard said he and his friends go out of their way again to make sure the police don't mess with them. The jump out boys is what the young men call the officers, or sometimes the hop out boys, referring to the police jump out of their vehicles to surprise the young men to see what they're doing. I heard them, they call the jump out boys. The term stems from a practice undercover police who conduct stakeouts from unmarked cars and vans, then jump out of the blue to make the bust. I'm not familiar with the community referring to our officers by those names, said Timothy Gerke, spokesman for the department. Officers routinely conduct field interviews when there is reasonable suspicion for a stop. He also noted that officers routinely back each other up while conducting investigations. Milwaukee police are involved in a federal appeals court case where they were accused of jumping out on a man, long suspected of a high-profile 2007 homicide, and pulling him and others from their car while they were parked outside a liquor store in 2014. Police said they approached the vehicle because it was parked within 15 feet of a crosswalk. The defendant argues that the encounter amounted to an unlawful search. One judge likened the practice to stopping people for parking while black. The full 7th U.S. District Court of Appeals has agreed to hear the case. That's basically what Pritchard says happened the afternoon Smith was killed. A patrol SUV and an unmarked police car pulled up at the same time, boxing them in. Within a minute of Smith parking the car in front of the house, officers jumped out. Smith got out from behind the wheel and ran north. Pritchard went south. Neither got far. Smith was quickly trapped by a chain link fence between 2 houses. Pritchard tripped and fell. He was facing the other direction and couldn't see Smith, but was close enough to hear, he said. I heard 4 gunshots. That's the sound that rang through his ears. He said he didn't hear the officer shout at Smith to drop the gun or order him to do anything. Pritchard said that he got back up and walked slowly to the middle of the street with his hands in the air, shouting, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." Pritchard was taken into custody that afternoon, arrested for violating probation. He had missed his appointment with his probation and parole agent in Brown County back in February. His whereabouts and activities remained unknown until his arrest on 8/13. The notice of violation states that Pritchard possessed the painkiller Percocet without a valid prescription. and that he had purchased and possessed marijuana that day. It says that he had been using and selling drugs since June. It also says that he possessed a firearm, an allegation Pritchard denies. Pritchard said officers tried to pin it on him, and that he sarcastically said, "Fine, if you want it to be mine, it's mine." He signed a statement admitting the violations and thus waived his right to revocation a hearing. He is scheduled to be sentenced on October 7th. Wow. State and law enforcement officials have said that they plan to publicly release the video from the body cameras that officers were wearing when Smith was shot. Patrick Smith, Seville Smith's father, said Thursday that the family had not yet seen the video. In statements released shortly after the shooting, police and Mayor Tom Barrett said that Smith was holding a loaded gun and turned toward the police officers. Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn described the whole encounter as taking 20 to 25 seconds, and when the officer unbuckled his seatbelt, chased Smith to the fence and fired. The autopsy shows Smith was shot once in the chest and once in the right arm. There has been no mention to date of more than those 2 shots being fired. Officials said Smith failed to comply with orders to drop the gun. It's unclear whether the footage, when released, will include audio of what officers said before the firing. The audio and video footage began recording when the officer hits the button. The prior 30 seconds are also included in the video but don't contain audio. Per the system's design, it's unknown when the officer hit the record button. The Milwaukee Police Department's use of force policy allows officers some discretion on verbal commands, stating when feasible, a verbal warning should be given prior to the use of force likely to cause great bodily harm or death. When feasible. Pritchard's account of what happened helped clear up a question that's been troubling Smith's mother, Mildred Haynes. A muffled voice message says Haynes received from Smith's cell phone at 3:22 that afternoon and made her wonder if her son had pocket dialed her just before the encounter, that she was hearing him surrendering to police before being shot. Smith's voice can be heard saying, "I'm turning around, bro, slow." Pritchard said that call took place as they were driving, before the police showed up. Smith was turning the car around because he had gone the wrong way to Pritchard's girlfriend's house. He wasn't talking to police, Pritchard said. So why did they run when the police showed up? Why wouldn't I run? Pritchard said. I'm scared of the police. Police have been killing a lot of people. I'm not trying to die. Y'all got it? So, that's an update on the Seville Smith case here. We're no closer to finding out what happened than we were on August 13th. And I hope we find some answers soon, and I hope the videotape is released soon, and I hope justice prevails in this case. Okay? Alright. So for those of y'all who've been asking for the update about Milwaukee, Seville Smith, there you have it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in a little bit in the mental house. Bye-bye.